Yo, what is going on, guys? J.Yumeko here, and today we're back with some more Crimson Gray Dusk and Dawn. I'm sorry if I sound a little bit nasally, or if I'm clearing my throat a lot in this video. I don't think I'm sick, but I don't know, the weather around here has been kind of wacky these past couple of days, so yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. It's got my sinuses acting up. So, yeah. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right on back into it. I don't know what option I chose. So forget about it, search for more information, or train to repair. I forget. Something happened with Koitek, I believe. Oh yeah, I think that it was revealed that like some other girl had kind of gone crazy, and it was somebody that was in the same experiment as Lizzie. So, and it got onto the news, so they're obviously a little bit on edge. We need to learn more. Whatever happens, it can't hurt to get more information. I suppose that's true, and it's not like we overworked anyway. Talk to Aaron maybe and check out the computer lab? Yes, let's do it. Though normally Lizzie would have been happier to stay inside with him, given what had just happened, it was soothing to learn more. They only learned a few new facts, but they kept the tension within her at bay. She glanced at John with concern, hoping that all their activities hadn't been too much for him, but he still seemed fine and smiled back at her. As she fell asleep, Lizzie tried to ponder what this would mean for them. All she was sure about was that she wanted to face it at his side. Several days later, more information had come out and everything was far less clear. The facts of the Warnos incident were overwhelmed by rumors, theories, and other chaos that muddled any potential message. Lizzie was absolutely certain in her interpretation, but obviously she was keeping that to herself. The girl's name was common knowledge now, and her face was represented by both a very normal-looking yearbook photo and her grin from the video. The exact order of events when she had killed 12 of her classmates was still argued over, adding to the conspiracy theories. It was unclear why she had done it, and none of the evidence offered struck Lizzie as correct. She was actually a little curious what the girl's reasoning had been behind it, but ultimately it didn't matter. At the moment, Lizzie was writing up some of her thoughts in her notebook. The incident had set her imagination on fire, so she'd used the notebook more lately, but she'd let John see much of what she did, and they'd be able to talk about it, which amplified the soothing effect. Now, though, she was finished and feeling restless. Lizzie glanced at the clock and got up to pace a little. John was currently at the computer lab, another part-time job he'd taken to try to reduce their debt. This one was also usually easy, he said, but tonight, allegedly, he was going to be playing games with some other people, including Aaron, which made her a little uncomfortable. She knew it was irrational, but she hadn't pushed too hard. But John knew she didn't like it. He'd promised that soon he'd start withdrawing a little more to spend more time with her, but hadn't specified exactly when. Lizzie decided that it was time to go visit him, not just to check on him, but because she might as well see what everyone else was interested in. Games didn't particularly interest her, and John hadn't played many because they were expensive, but there was a group on campus setting up something called a LAN party. She made her way across campus at speed toward the lab. She was anxious, no point denying that, but it was a low-level anxiety she could swallow without doing any harm. Inside, she found things a little different than expected. Each person had a separate computer. Maybe she had been thinking of consoles, with everyone together on the same couch. This was reasonable and seemed like the kind of thing John would like. Though almost everyone was utterly fixated on the screen, John looked up and smiled when he saw her. She immediately moved to stand behind him, one hand on his shoulder. The screen seemed to be from the point of view of someone running through corridors carrying a gun. There were other numbers, presumably the statistics related to the game.
So, this is the game?
Yeah, it's fun playing over a LAN, but I doubt I'd want to play it too often. No, I forgot this is how we saw him. That's normal, right? I mean, there are a lot more important causes in the world, but you can't be focused all the time or you'll just end up useless, you know? Lizzie could be focused all the time, or at least she should be, but she nodded. It was true for John, at least, and one of the ways she needed to protect him. Sorry if I'm distracted. After the match, we can't... He cut off as someone else appeared from around a corner on his screen, abruptly moving his mouse and hitting his keys much faster. Lizzie found herself briefly concerned for his avatar, but fortunately it was the other player who collapsed, the little human image spurting blood.
That's not very realistic.
That prompted a strange eyebrow from Aaron.
Well, it is a game. So, the winner is the person who kills the most people?
More or less. The timer is... Whoa! Hey! Frick. Is there a way to just get the image? Because I like this image. It's a very good image. Okay, whatever. Once again, the game sucked up his attention, so Lizzie stopped distracting him and just stayed behind to watch. If she could play the game, would John like that? Lizzie watched his hands in the gameplay. Reaction time seemed to play a part, and she'd be good at that, but the actions necessary to move and fire seemed very artificial. She wasn't very sure she'd be able to adjust to them. Of course, she wouldn't want to play against John, even if his character was just a little soldier that didn't look like him. She also wasn't sure she wanted to play with this group. A few were staring at her with the look that made her set her teeth on edge. Only John got to look at her that way. Things went well until John's avatar came under heavy fire. Abruptly, the screen pulled back, and she saw the little figure collapse in a shower of blood. John had been killed? He winced and muttered to himself. Raw hatred surged through Lizzie as she realized that one of the people in the room had killed him. He popped back up a second later, but she barely noticed, scanning the other chairs. Was there any way to tell which username connected to the person who had killed him? But as things went on, John killed them back several times. He got killed again, and the surges of hatred faded. It was just a silly little avatar after all. John was fine. If she could kill people in real life and do no harm, would she? The idea kind of excited her, but she decided not to explore it for now. Before too long, the match ended. If she read the screen right, John did well, in the top third of players. Considering he had less time for games than many other people, she was very proud of him, giving him a quick hug from behind. He swiveled in his chair to face her, smiling. You came to watch, I take it? Do you want to play?
No, I don't know about that. It doesn't seem like my sort of thing.
Did you know that there are seriously people blaming the Wuornos incident on violent video games? Shaking his head, Aaron swiveled to face them.
It's not just a few crackpots either. I hear a lot of people are saying that this is because of the violence in our media, calling for all kinds of societal change, so long as they're superficial.
I don't think you're going to overthrow the status quo with a revolution, Aaron, but obviously I agree that all campaigning against violent games is misplaced.
I don't know, man. I think we're past the point where incremental change can accomplish anything. You saw how the pharmaceuticals just spun this incident to give them even more power, but it was a Koitek town. Who knows how many drugs might have made the situation worse? The two of them went back and forth, arguing mildly. It interested Lizzie a little, but was more abstract than she preferred. She drew up a chair and got involved to prevent some of the unpleasant people from coming closer and trying to talk to her. It seems like they were taking a break in between matches, several people taking the time to go to the bathroom or get snacks. For the most part, it seemed like a decent group, so Lizzie didn't mind John spending time with them. The break didn't last long, not nearly long enough for John and Aaron to resolve their disagreement. John glanced at her, but when Lizzie smiled encouragingly, he participated in the next match as well. As she watched, Lizzie got more of a natural sense. Digital murder. As she watched, Lizzie got more of a natural sense for the game, but that actually took her out of the experience. In the game, there was no way you could tell if someone was behind you, no sense for the environment, or easy way to keep tabs in the scenario, and the blood effects really were sort of silly, not realistic at all. Yet she felt a little intrigued. John had mentioned that computer graphics were always getting better. If there was a game that looked more realistic and let her use knives instead of guns, she wondered if it could be fun for her. Not the same as killing people, but... When they finished the next match, John got up to stretch while Aaron glanced toward them again. You're really watching intently. You sure you don't want to play, Lizzie? No, it's okay. I don't really like guns.
Fair enough. This kind of crazy violence isn't for everyone. Finished stretching, John glanced over at her. For a moment, just considering. Then he nodded. I think I've had about enough for today. You want to head home, Lizzie?
Okay.
You two take care, okay? They left the lab and walked back together, taking their time. John seemed to be contemplating something, so Lizzie just kept pace alongside him and let him think until he was ready. Aaron is a good guy, but I don't think we're ever going to agree on some big things.
Everything we were talking about with societal change, you mean?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll see the FDCA change and the entire industry will be transformed. But I kind of doubt it. History would have needed to go differently years ago. I agree with you, John. But maybe that's fine. He'll go his own way and organize protests and things. I'll see if I can't do more within the system. Maybe both approaches are necessary. They'll take us in completely different directions, though. Do you mean you aren't upset that I'm uncomfortable around Aaron, are you? He looked at her, slight surprise in his eyes. No, not at all. I was trying to say the opposite. It looks like our choices in life will mean that we spend less time together regardless. Ah, I understand. I'm glad you're not upset. Just thoughtful. It's strange how choices you make at the beginning of life can take things in such different directions. It's like, is there another version of me who follows Francesca's path and works for the FDCA? Another one where I join protests? One where I forget all about it and just take some other job? Interesting. And it was interesting, but Lizzie didn't like the idea. She liked this John, the one with her. She liked herself and the singular relationship they had. John noticed her slight frown before she could think to hide it, but Lizzie decided that it was fine. You seem troubled. I don't like thinking about other versions of myself. A Lizzie who never met you? Or who somehow didn't love you? Or I don't want to think about those. You don't have to focus on the depressing possibilities. What about a version of you where we escaped Koitek entirely and just lived happily together? That did bring a bit of warmth to her heart, even if it was just a fantasy. But a moment later, Lizzie realized the true potential of the concept. She could always stay with her John and make the best decisions, but she could imagine all the paths not taken and enjoy them too, just adding more facets to the relationship. I like that, John. I really do. I'm glad. And I just wanted to say that even considering every possible future reality. What? And I just wanted to say that even considering every possible future reality, I want to be with you in all of them. Aww. Lizzie latched onto his arm happily and squeezed him for just a moment. Me too, John. All the alternate reality Lizzie's wants to be with you too. Well, now we're getting into straight science fiction. The two of them explored that topic as they headed back, sometimes speculative and sometimes just silly. Lizzie was happy to discuss it and brimming with happiness by the time they went to bed. There were so many other paths in life, but it would always be John and Lizzie. Lizzie and John. Forever. Lizzie had been having a good day until she went out to get their mail. It contained their usual financial statement from the college, which normally she looked at dutifully, but didn't particularly care about. Nothing was wrong, technically. Their account was in good order, and all the payments were as expected. What bothered her was that their debt had only changed by the usual amount. John had been working so much more. Shouldn't it have gone down? To be sure she wasn't making a mistake, Lizzie went to find their previous statement in a box with the others since John was always so organized. Yes, everything was just as she remembered. Odd. Chewing on her lower lip, Lizzie began looking around their home, checking alternative possibilities. The cash they kept at home was about the usual. There hadn't been any expenses she'd neglected to consider, and no mid-semester textbooks. Then where had the money gone? Her first thought was a fear that they had been robbed somehow, the second that the university was cheating them. But she discarded both of those quickly, as it would have had other consequences before now. That left the possibility that John was intentionally hiding something from her. Slowly sinking onto the couch, Lizzie chewed on one of her fingers and rolled her knife around her other hand in an exercise that was usually soothing, but not this time. There was the possibility that he wanted to buy something for himself. He hadn't had his own computer for the game. Maybe it was that. But if that was true, why wouldn't he have mentioned anything to her? Did he think that she would ever deny him anything? It was possible that he was gathering it for some kind of emergency. Or even to leave? No, surely not. She couldn't live without him, and so John would never do such a thing. But if not, why? Why? Realizing there was blood trickling down her finger, Lizzie removed it from her mouth. She paused a moment, stealing her knife, then took a deep breath. Let it go, confront him, ask him. Let's just ask him. I mean, like, this is building trust, right? Lizzie gripped her knife and firmly set aside all her doubts. Her John would never do anything to hurt her. She got up and began preparing dinner for them. though her knife moved a little more forcefully than necessary. When she finally heard his footsteps, Lizzie eagerly dropped the knife and ran to fling the door open.
Welcome home, John.
My, you're in a good mood. She pulled him inside and into her embrace, which he returned warmly. Once they had the door closed behind him, though, Lizzie let some of her concern show.
John, I hope this is just a silly fear, but I wanted to talk to you about it. Do we have some kind of financial problem?
Fuck me, my voice.
Do we have some kind of financial problem? You know you could share anything with me, right?
His eyes widened. Then he gave a rueful smile. God, I'm sorry. I was planning a happy surprise for you, but I guess I should have known you might get worried over it.
A surprise? The money from all the extra shifts. It's for a surprise?
I've been saving funds for our wedding. Her heart soared. She'd been right to trust him. Absolutely right. Though she didn't understand why he had kept it a secret, she was certain that he would explain, and of course, her John would have a good explanation.
Oh, John, that's so wonderful.
John moved further in and sat down, drawing her with him onto the couch. After all the unnecessary tension dragging her down, now she was elated. Though she gave John a huge smile, the way his eyes lingered on her suggested that the tension was visible on her face. I've been planning this for quite a while. After high school, you were nervous the wedding would go wrong somehow, so I didn't try then. As time went on, you seemed less worried about it, but by then we already had our college debt. I started thinking about how I talked about money a lot, and I wondered if you wanted to get married, but felt that you couldn't ask because of money. So I decided to save up a decent amount. Then I could ask you and show that the money would be no concern.
Oh, you don't have to be concerned about that, John. Not at all. I'm just so happy.
Let me know if you have concerns, Lizzie. I'm grateful that you help and support me, but I want to support you too.
Oh, part of me wants to get married right away, but we shouldn't rush. We have to make sure everything is perfect.
Yeah, that'll be something we can talk about. Actually, let me get the money. No sense keeping it in a packet now.
Wait, let me hold you longer first.
Lizzie threw herself at him cheerfully, and he was glad to hold her. She nestled against his chest, imagining their wedding. Soon, Lizzie realized that her imagination was only the beginning. The two of them could discuss all their wedding plans now. She pulled back and beamed at him again.
So many discussions to make. Where do we start?
Well, do you still want me to get down on one knee and propose? It, feels kind of weird given everything, but I wasn't sure if you'd appreciate the gesture.
3 years ago, I think I would have said yes, but now, I don't think it really matters. We both already know that we want to get married, and as for the romantic gesture, I already have lots of romantic memories, like you helping me clean up all those bodies.
That got a chuckle from him, which had been her goal. She meant it, though. John wasn't like her, and he could have been scared. But he had helped her, and accepted her even after seeing everything she was capable of. Compared to that, the fantasy of him going down on one knee didn't seem to matter. Getting married, though, she still wanted that and all the memories that went with it. Lizzie put her hand down on his knee eagerly.
Okay, you were probably thinking about all kinds of plans and details, right? How close are we?
Well, that depends. It doesn't cost much to just get married at the courthouse, but I imagine you wanted something more than that. The price of most weddings is ridiculous, but I've been looking into ways to avoid the worst costs. They inflate prices for weddings, you see. John explained everything he had been considering, making it clear just how much research he'd done. She agreed with him on almost everything. They didn't need a lot of stupid expensive things for their wedding, just the things that really mattered, which quickly came down to a small list. I looked into renting a tux, but it was actually a little more expensive than I expected. Is a suit fine?
I'm sure you'll look wonderful.
But I assume you want a unique dress, right?
Yes, it doesn't have to be anything expensive, but I want something that can remind me of the wedding.
There are people in town that make dresses for less than I thought. I'll introduce you and you can choose whatever you want.
Okay.
She didn't need a fancy dress. In fact, the idea of choosing all the little details appealed less than the role the dress would play in creating their perfect moment. But it was such a nice idea that she didn't even mind having to talk to someone else about it. I remember you saying how pictures were important to you, so I've looked into photographers. It's more expensive than I thought, but I don't think we'll need them for long.
No, probably not. John, we haven't talked about if we're going to invite anyone to our wedding.
His expression became more serious, though not sad. He nodded slowly. Yes, we need to talk about that. Setting aside everything except what you want, how many people do you want at our wedding, Lizzie?
2.
I'm guessing you don't mean the photographer.
All that matters is the 2 of us, John. We don't need anyone else.
That does simplify things. And since we don't want much of a service, that means we don't need to reserve the venue for as long either.
John, do you agree with me? How many people do you want at our wedding?
He paused for a moment, but she didn't see any fear in his eyes. He reached out to take her hand, and Lizzie gave it an encouraging squeeze. Honestly, I wish we could have a few people, but right now, there's no one I really want to invite. I mean, we have some friends, but... Lizzie considered thoughtfully, both his words and the implication beneath them.
So, there's no problem for the wedding, but in the future, do you need more people?
You'll always be the only one for me, Lizzie. You do know that, right?
Of course, John.
She embraced him again, beaming. In fact, she decided to just stay draped against him while he did a quick total on a sheet of paper and showed it to her. So, this is our total thus far. Pretty manageable. But we haven't talked about rings yet, which could be really expensive.
Nope, I don't want any diamonds.
Huh? Really? I mean, the rings will be something we actually wear for a long time, and I figure diamonds are traditional.
Diamonds are only valuable because of Monopoly. We learned all about it in one of my classes. The kind of thing that normal stupid people think is special. We're much more special than that.
Since John wasn't objecting, Lizzie hopped up and ran to get her notebook. She returned with it, flipping the pages rapidly to get the one she wanted. I do know that, nowadays some people are going with, those rubber rings. So yeah, those are pretty interesting. I remember that page. Is it actually about rings?
Yes. I didn't draw any designs, but I've been thinking about materials. At first, I thought about using high-grade steel, but the thing about steel is that different grades are better for different uses. The idea of using knife steel was kind of nice, but I realized it was the wrong material. A relationship is more durable than that.
Smiling, John put an arm around her and sat back, just enjoying listening to her enthuse about the subject.
For a while, I was thinking about having tungsten carbide rings because it has such a good hardness rating, but tungsten is brittle and impacts can break it, and that's nothing like our relationship at all. So I decided that titanium might be best after all. It's a little more common, but it would be strong, and I'd be so happy to see us wearing them.
It doesn't matter if it's common. What matters is that they're the rings we want. Titanium rings are fine with me.
Also, titanium is much lighter, and while it probably wouldn't make too much difference, I don't want my ring to slow me down at all.
You've obviously thought this through. Well, this seems better in all respects, because that means we don't have to pay nearly as much. In fact, we're pretty close to our total. Getting the reservation might be the harder part.
That's okay. I can wait.
She simultaneously wanted to be married right away, and wanted to be able to enjoy this anticipation forever. But one thing that she learned with John was that the anticipation of the thing often paled in comparison to the thing itself, so she was eager for the wedding. That just improved the anticipation, though. For the next several weeks, Lizzie was overjoyed. Even handling the minor details of the events was wonderful, to say nothing of the major ones. It all seemed to pass by in a rush, but she relished it and tried to capture every detail in her mind. The old woman who made her dress wasn't so bad, and helped Lizzie fill in the details of her vague fantasies. She loved what she saw, though given the schedule, she wouldn't see the finished dress until their wedding day. Getting their rings turned out to be simpler, just to visit a jeweler's and wait. Their rings were a perfect match except for the size. Until the wedding, they each held the other's ring. Lizzie found herself clutching it in her hands often, smiling to herself. Focused on the wedding, Lizzie paid little attention to the news. It didn't matter. All that mattered was the two of them. Until one day, when that wasn't true anymore. Alright, that is a perfect place to stop. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and save. Yes. Alrighty. So it looks like next episode of this is gonna be pretty, shit is probably gonna hit the fan. I think it's pretty safe to say that. But yeah, we're finally getting married. It seems that our relationship is, going pretty smooth right now. So this is good. This next little conflict is gonna be the wrench in that smooth operating machine, and I'm gonna guess that it's probably gonna be kind of a climax in this story, so maybe it has to do with Koitek, or you know, yada yada yada. But that's going to be it for this time. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video and tell me in the comment section below what you'd like to see me play next. If you enjoyed this video or any other videos in the series on my channel, then I highly recommend you hit the subscribe button and turn on the post notifications so you'll be notified when a new one of those videos comes out. Anyways, it's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one.